everyone, and welcome to the first edition of the Haverhill Public Schools Education Update. From now until the end of this school year, myself, Margaret Murata, Superintendent of Schools in Haverhill, along with our Assistant Superintendent, Michael Pifferling, and other members of our staff that we think will be of interest to you and topics that are of concern at the moment, will be coming to you live to your computer on a weekly basis so that we can keep you informed and know together where we're going and what we're planning. Do you want to say hello, Michael?
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Murata. This is, I think this is not what anybody expected for us to be doing here in May. We thought we'd be around smiling children and classrooms of laughter and learning. Unfortunately, this is what we're resorted to. So we're going to make the best of it. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to communicate with our families.
Excellent. And it's a great time for us to kick this off. It's Teacher Appreciation Week, and we certainly have a lot to be thankful for these days. Our teachers are really knocking it out of the park in terms of supporting our kids and trying to support our families. We know it's tough out there. We know parents did not sign up to be teachers, and you're doing it every day. So we thank you all for that.
Yeah, I think, our teachers have been doing a fantastic job, and we've got parents and grandparents and siblings helping out at home who are acting as pseudo teachers, and we appreciate all your support to make sure that these students are still continuing their learning. We also want to appreciate our food service people who have been out there on the front lines since March 16th, serving lunches, and last Friday was Super Lunch Hero Day, and they've just been doing a fantastic job, so thank them. And our school nurses have National School Nurse Appreciation Day this Wednesday, so that's another one. Unfortunately, there's not one for everybody, but I got to say, everybody from the Haverhill Public Schools have just been doing a fantastic job. Our clerical staff, our custodial staff, our transportation department, food service, everybody's just really been chipping in and doing a great job. So I wish we could make this about appreciating everybody in the Haverhill Public Schools because they've all done a wonderful job.
Yeah, and you know what I just realized, Mike? Sunday is Mother's Day. In case people have lost track of time, I'll give that public service announcement right now. Let's give Mom a big thank you this weekend. I know it hasn't been easy for her as for any of us. So it's pretty much a big thank you week for everyone.
Thank you for the reminder.
Get those cards and letters going. Let's see. In today's episode, I think we're going to cover a few things. We have food services coming in later. Anna from Food Services is going to talk a little bit about the food services program that's been really knocking it out of the park, as well as our nursing services. Director Katie Voziolis will be coming sharing some information with you. And I think for you and I, Mike, we should probably update people on our planning for next year and what's going to happen for summer school. And anything else we need to cover?
Yeah, I think the only other thing that we wanted to cover in this episode revolved around graduation and how our seniors are affected by this and what we're doing to make sure that they have the best possible experience. Unfortunately, it's not the ideal experience, but the best possible experience and what plans we have in place for them. But just to give you an update, our custodial staff is already back in our buildings. They're working tirelessly to get our buildings cleaned and ready to go. So when that day comes that we can reopen our buildings, whether it's for summer school or for the fall sessions, our custodial staff and our maintenance staff are already back in our buildings. While we're on the topic of in our buildings, we know a lot of our students left a lot of materials, their personal belongings in our schools. So over the next few weeks, we are putting a plan together for us to package up all those materials into paper bags and get them distributed to the families and get them back to you. We know that you left on March 12th thinking you were going to be back on the 13th, and that just never happened. So that is something we're putting into play also. But we're getting our buildings ready, and we're coming up with plans on how we're going to keep social distancing whenever the time comes that we can come back, and how many kids can we put in a classroom safely, and how many teachers can fit in a break room or at the copier. There's just so many pieces of this dynamic that we never thought we'd have to worry about, and now we are. So we've got a lot of planning to do, but we've got a good kind of an outline of what we need to look at. Hi, welcome to Haverhill Public Schools. This is Mike Piffling, Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operations. And today I am very fortunate to be joined by Anna Paracchio, who is our Food Service Director with Whitson's Foods Culinary Program. Hi, Anna. How are you today?
Good. How are you doing?
Great, great. So this is Anna's only been with us since late February, and as you know, mid-March we ran into COVID-19, and Anna and her team of lunch ladies and lunch men have been doing a fantastic job serving our kids some meals around the city of Haverhill here. So Anna, why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on and what services you're providing to keep the children of Haverhill fed during this situation?
Yeah, sure. So right now we have 6 different distribution sites where families can come and pick up breakfast for the next day and lunch for that day. Those sites are Hunking School, Constantino, Nettle, Whittier, the Boys and Girls Club, and the YMCA. So the meal sites are open from 11 to 1 every single day, and families can come pick up meals.
That's great. So can you tell us what's the breakfast and what's the lunch? What are we serving? What do we have out there for options?
Yeah, so we have a variety for each day. Breakfast can include cereal. It always comes with fruit of some sort. We've been doing Nutri-Grain bars, things of that sort. And lunches have included our emergency meals that have been coming from the Whitson's plant down in New York. And we've also been making meals here in-house that have included a variety of sandwiches and salads.
So, breakfast, you said cereal. I'm assuming we give them a carton of milk also?
Correct. Yep. Each meal comes with a milk as well.
Okay. And lunch also, we give them milk for lunch also?
Yep. Yes. Yeah.
And I hear fresh fruit. That must be a big...
Fresh fruit. Yeah. We have fresh vegetables as well, which has been really, really great. We've been preparing salads here and including those with meals too. And I think the kids have been really, really enjoying those.
Great. So tell us a little bit about what's making this program so successful here in Haverhill. I mean, we're doing over 1,000 breakfasts and lunches a day. So
Right.
What's making this so successful?
Well, the number one would be our food service team. You know, we've had our staff out there every single day and they've been really adapting to the changes that have been happening week to week, day to day. Which has been really, really amazing. And, you know, we have the ladies at the YMCA that are out there. It doesn't matter what the weather is. And honestly, we couldn't do any of this without our food service staff. They've been working really, really well as a team and been just so flexible and adaptable to everything that's been happening. I couldn't be more proud of the team that we have.
I got to say, I've been by all the sites a few times, and I got to say, if it's raining or cool and damp and wet,
Right.
they're just out there with smiles. They're just a lovely group of people, and we're so fortunate to have them here with us.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I agree.
And last week we got to celebrate them a little bit, right? Tell us a little bit.
It was School Lunch Hero Day last Friday, May 1st, which is really, really great to be able to celebrate them on that day. So we got them t-shirts, which I think that they'll really, really enjoy, especially in these upcoming spring and summer days where it will be a little bit warmer. And we had a virtual celebration too with Desi, which was really, really great to watch and see all the different food service employees around the state and what they're doing too. So we had some pictures up there and just to celebrate Haverhill and what we're doing here.
I can't agree more. These ladies and gentlemen out there, they are the heart and soul of our food service program, and we are so fortunate to have them. So tell us, we're gonna serve meals obviously right through June 19th, but then we're also gonna probably have a summer plan for families so that we can continue to serve meals through summer. You know, when do you think we'll have some information out about that?
I would say probably the next couple weeks we'll have more information.
Okay, so we'll look at what sites we're going to offer, when we'll
Right.
do the meal service, things like that. So, but we always, you know, we'll make it part of our summer school program and have meals available to our community members also. That's great. So Anna, you just came to us in February.
Yes.
Just talk a little bit about yourself, because I think everybody wants to know who our food
Sure.
service director is.
Yeah. So I'm a registered dietitian as well. My background is in healthcare. However, prior to working in the hospital as a food service manager, I did AmeriCorps where I worked directly into a food bank, doing cooking classes and meal distributions actually with families as well. So, you know, you know, giving food to people in need is something very, very near and dear to my heart. So I'm really, really excited that I'm able to feed students and the families of Haverhill.
Well, that's great. I mean, you have just been doing a great job. You know, this is something that nobody could have ever predicted, and you guys have just rolled with the punches and really taken this, you know, to new levels. So we really appreciate everything you guys have done, and making sure that our families in Haverhill continue to have their nutritious school lunches and breakfast provided to them. So thank you so much. And, you know, everybody stay tuned. We'll have some updates as far as what we're going to do for our summer program coming out in a couple of weeks, as Anna said. And thank you, Anna, to you and your team for all of the hard work you guys have done. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm a school lunch hero because I help prepare nutritious meals for our students every day.
So we've been busy at Haverhill Public Schools, not only preparing academics and information for students and families this year, but really thinking about what does education look like moving forward in Haverhill. And I think that answer right now is very unclear. But we have to plan for it and think about a number of different options, as it's very possible that school moving forward is going to continue to look very different from what it did 2 months ago, although it may not look exactly like it does today. Certainly we hope not. In preparing our thoughts for school moving forward, our team at central office and our leadership team of principals have really come up with 4 scenarios that we could be looking at, and we really have to plan for all 4 of those scenarios moving forward. One of those is remote learning as it stands now. That's not our plan. That's not what we hope for, but we know that that's a possibility with, you know, hopefully we're going to get better at it, and we're going to be able to streamline it and support students better, but that is a possibility. More likely, we hope, is some sort of in-person schooling with social distancing, obviously, as Mr. Piffeling mentioned earlier, with our students being 6 feet apart at all times, with students and teachers wearing masks in the buildings, and with safety and hygiene protocols throughout the school day. And that obviously has some impact on how many students we can fit in each building. It means we've already begun measuring each of our schools and each of our classrooms to see how many students we can fit in a building with 6 feet social distancing. And I'll tell you, it looks like our buildings would be about at half the capacity they are currently. So that means some major rethinking of what we're doing. And I think there's also, that brings us to a possibility where we could have some sort of hybrid of remote learning and social distanced in-person learning, where students are doing maybe half, 2 days remote learning and 2 days in person, and maybe we flip-flop. And I know that doesn't sound great to families, and there's a lot of questions then around what about work? What about who's going to care for my children the other days while they can't go to school, but I need to earn a living? And there are many, many questions around that. We certainly hope that it won't come to that, but it is a possibility, and people need to know that if it's just not safe. And the final possibility is that we could have some sort of hybrid or remote, some sort of hybrid learning or social distance learning, and then need to pivot on a dime if there's some sort of outbreak in our community to go back to remote learning again. So we have a lot of work to do. And we've begun that work, and I know a big part of that work Mr. Piffeling has been concentrating on, and that is just the physical space and safety in our buildings. Mike, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that, you know, we've already got the custodians and our principals and staff members measuring every classroom in the district, measuring every cafeteria, considerations for how we're going to serve lunch and breakfast every day. One of the other considerations we have to take into consideration is the transportation. How do we get kids to school? How do we keep them 6 feet apart on a bus? So what does that look like? Do we, do schools start at different times? There's so many factors that we need to look into, that we are looking into. Making sure that we've got all the safeguards in place for our staff. So when somebody comes into the building, that they kept 6 feet, we see at the cash registers at the grocery stores now, the plastic shields, plexiglass shields, those are things that we're looking at to make sure that not only are our students safe, but also our staff and our visitors remain safe from any potential harm that could come to them as a result of the COVID-19 situation. So we've got a lot of work that we're planning and we're doing, but right now, we're trying to make sure that our schools are cleaned and ready to go, so that when that day comes, that we can get kids back in the building, we're ready to go. Another thing we're looking at is how do we, in some of our schools, how do we utilize the space behind the school for parent drop off and pickup, so that there's more distance between kids and the bus kids and the walkers and the pickup and drop off kids. So a lot of things that we're looking at that need to take a lot of logistics, but we've got a great team of people really focusing on how we're going to make this happen.
Yeah, Mike, I think for me, one of the biggest questions, I feel like we will figure out inside the buildings, and we will find a way to make it work. But transportation really has me concerned. How do you social distance on a bus? What does that look like? And I guess in the end, I'm thinking that a lot of parents might be choosing to drive their students this year, or we can do more students walking to school, just for safety and health reasons, that those folks that can sort of rearrange their schedule to make it work to bring their own students would probably be a great asset to us as a community. It will mean many more cars coming to the school at a time, and we need to think and plan for that. But I don't think that we can double or triple the number of buses that we currently have running. I think that the expense of that is far too great. And I don't think that there is the capacity to do that in terms of either buses or bus drivers out there. So I think we're going to sort of have to think about that as a community, what we're going to do to get our kids safely to and from school. I think that's going to be a big one for us.
Yeah, even the cost factor. I mean, even if we could afford it, I don't think there's enough buses and drivers out there to do this. I mean, we're just one of thousands of communities around the country that are looking at the same type of ideas. So there's just not enough buses and not enough drivers. So again, it's not a reality. We need to look at other options.
Yep. And we'll be keeping people posted over the next weeks as we think things through on this subject. But I think transportation is one that may impact families, that folks may need to think a little bit differently about, and we certainly are thinking differently about it. I think another big bucket of work that we're working on is just what does it look like for kids to come back to school, right? In terms of, and we're looking at this in sort of two ways. One is the social emotional part of kids coming back to school, and the other is the academic part of kids coming back to school. And we're already going pretty deep on the social emotional piece. And that includes, for me, it includes attendance. Where are our kids right now? What are they doing? The vast majority of our kids we've been able to locate. We're engaging between 80 to 85% of our kids every week. And we've seen all but, I think it's 1 or 2% of our kids at some point for check-ins to make sure that they're okay across the school system. There's some concern, can we sustain that? Is the novelty of online learning going to wear off? And I think it may be beginning to wear off for some. So we're concerned about how to keep that going. But right now we have a team working on tier 3 interventions around trauma. I mean, this is a traumatic event that every child in the country and really in the world has been affected by and impacted by, and it's going to impact us when we go back to school. It's clearly impacting some children at home now. You see the anxiety in your house with your kids, and small children wearing masks, and it's very hard for them to comprehend. Certainly, it's hard for adults to comprehend. So it's much harder for children to comprehend. And that separation anxiety when for the first time they're leaving their parents and coming to school in the fall for 6 hours a day, hopefully, it's going to be, there's going to be a large scale issue of trauma that we're going to have to deal with in our schools and our kids that really aren't accustomed to the structure of school any longer. There's going to be a big impact. So, we're starting to plan for that, thinking of all the different things that could go wrong and that could be impactful, and how do we mitigate some of those situations. And simultaneously, we're looking at academics for next year, right? What's working in remote learning, what's not, where are the gaps that kids have experienced that we wouldn't have expected had we been in school, what programs and online programs can we use, how can we create opportunities for mediation. So those are the sort of things that we're looking at as a school district. Mike, can you think of other things that we want to alert the public to out there that we've been thinking of?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody should know that we're still serving lunches and breakfast every day, Monday through Friday. So make sure that we've got those opportunities and you're taking advantage of those. We're also looking at, how do we space kids out in schools, and are hallways one way or two ways? What does recess look like? I know that's always a good time of the day is recess and gym, physical education. What do those classes look like? What does music class look like? I mean, there's just, it's not just the old school sit in a classroom all day. Our schools are much more interactive. We need to consider how do we have enough devices for every student, because we can't let students share devices anymore. When we return to school, that there might used to be a Chromebook cart in a classroom, and it might have been shared between a couple of classrooms, and students would just grab a Chromebook. Now we're going to have to assign Chromebooks to kids. We're going to need to look at supplies and crayons and markers, and every kid's going to need their own set of everything, so that there's no cross-contamination of potential harmful, COVID germs or whatever. So those are things that we continue to look at, and it's just a different environment that we're going to have to be working under.
Yeah, and I'll add one more wrinkle to that. I think we've also been considering, so how do we limit access to other people, like keep kids in cohorts so that they're not interacting with too many other children and adults. I mean, in the past where teachers might have switched off with different groups of kids, do we want to limit that to specific teachers with specific groups of kids? And also, I've been reading, in Europe, as folks are coming back, and I don't know if this is going to be very popular, but they've been limiting parent interaction in the buildings, that non-essential adults are not coming and going from the school buildings. And I know that's hard for families, and I don't know if we're going to have to go there or not. But I think that we're going to have to make our schools as secure as possible in terms of, allowing virus and germs to come into the building. I know that we're going to be putting up plexiglass sheets in our offices, much like the grocery stores, to protect our office staff. And we'll definitely have some new rules around building entrance and exit. And I know some of that's going to be hard for people, but I think it may be for the greater good. And again, we'll keep people posted on that. So I guess for me, I would just say, bear with us. It's a learning experience. We're going to learn as we go. We're going to learn from the folks who have gone before us and learn from their mistakes, as well as make a few of our own. But we're moving forward with the best of attention and using the best research and information that's out there in a very new world. As promised, I'm here with Katie Boziolis, our Director of Health and Nursing Services for Haverhill Public Schools. And Katie's going to share with us a little bit of her thoughts on what it's going to look like, or what it might look like, when hopefully we all return to school in the fall, and some of the work that our school nursing department is doing to prepare. And Katie, I think it's also School Nurses Day this week on Wednesday. Is that correct?
That's correct. Wednesday is National School Nurse Day. and a day that those of us in school nursing and our education comrades share to sort of celebrate the work of school nurses. You know, they often sort of work a little bit in the shadows in the school building, but their role in assuring children are ready to learn is really vital. So even during the past month or two with the pandemic, the nurses have been working very closely with the school teams in terms of health and safety of children and families in their home, both just as related to existing health conditions, mental behavioral health, and also supporting those families in terms of the COVID-19. We have had a number of families who have been affected, and you know, the school nurses continue to reach out. We've spent a lot of time, or we continue to spend a lot of time as working groups working on planning for the fall or for our return to school. And that included even things like cleaning up of policy and procedure, and working on educational programming. But probably our more important work right now is really in terms of what will reentry to school look like. What are the things that we need to consider and to assure that we can bring our staff and our students back safely and in a healthy way. So really looking at probably some change in workflow in the nursing health offices. I believe our school nurses will be way more mobile than they've been in the past and probably deliver a lot more services at the classroom rather than having kids congregate in the health office. Looking at physical space in terms of isolation if we had a child who we were concerned about. And of course, things like how do we screen you know, how do we screen people as they come into the building? What will the protocol be if somebody ends up with a positive result for COVID and they've been in a classroom, even with the 6-foot distancing? So there's many components, and I'm, you know, pleased to be part of the committee that Mike Pfefferling, our assistant superintendent, will be sort of chairing in terms of, you know, what do our physical spaces look like, and what do we need to do as a district to prepare as we bring those students back.
Thanks, Katie. And I think as communities are beginning to prepare and communities are opening up across the country, I'm hearing more and more about sort of universal screens, screens for you know, temperature. I know I had to take my father the other day to Mass General for a doctor's appointment, and he had to fill out a questionnaire before he could walk in the door, sort of about what his symptoms were, or if he had any symptoms in general. Are those things that we're thinking about for schools? What might we see differently?
So the conversation about screening for temperature is certainly one that's in the forefront for school health and for buildings, you know, being looked at. The National Association of School Nurses is working very closely at the federal level and with CDC in terms of some of these return to school guidelines. There are some really tricky aspects of things like temperature. For example, you know, when you talk about using the no-touch thermometers, the infrared thermometers, if you have kids coming in from out in the cold, a lot of those results aren't going to really be valid until that child's forehead comes up to the correct temperature. So just as one example, or same thing if they're out in the hot sun. So I think we're all kind of waiting to see what that looks like. The other consideration or concern, I think, from a school nursing perspective is we know that there is a large percent of individuals who don't exhibit a temperature. So, you know, how will, you know, what are the other things we're going to be looking for? And we'll have to do a lot of education with the teachers about other things they may see or be concerned about in that classroom or as a child comes in. It would be impossible to screen everybody by survey every day, of course, because we're dealing with often in cases younger children or even older children. So there's going to, you know, that's going to be a little bit of a heavy load for teachers to really just use all their senses with the children sitting in front of them. And again, you know, having really clear, easy lines of communication with the nursing office in terms of students that they have concerns.
Thank you, Katie. And I know that we have a number of kids in our school system that have some sort of immunocompromised system or ongoing sort of health concern, or perhaps their parents do at home. So I imagine that both academically and health-wise, we'll be doing some planning for those students as well, particular individually.
Absolutely, and I look at our classrooms or our special ed students that need multiple supports, or we call them our MSP classrooms. I already have the school nurses who work with those children thinking about how we, limit the number of people that actually are in that 6-foot space with these kiddos every day for more than 15 minutes, because clearly these are kids that a lot of individuals in those classrooms are in very close contact every day. So how do we rethink delivery of services and certainly, be able to provide that physical care that's going to be needed, what kind of personal protective equipment, those kinds of things. And again, this is one of the important things about our really open relationships with these families, and keeping that line of communication open during this time and talking with them frequently so that we hear their concerns and that they know that we're here to listen, and we're going to plan individually for every single child in that scenario.
That's great. Thank you, Katie. It certainly puts my mind at ease a little bit, knowing that you're sort of really out there on the forefront of this, and our nurses are really invested in making sure that everyone's safe, and we're going to do the very best we can. So I thank you and all the nurses for that. And yeah, I guess I would also say for folks listening at home, I think next week, Pamela McDonald, our special education director, will be joining us and talking a little bit more about not only students that may have health issues, but about the learning of our students that are on IEPs in general, and how we're going to think about making up some of this learning loss that's going on with those kids, and really all kids. And how we're going to continue to improve at making online academics more accessible to students with disabilities. So we'll look forward to that. Thank you very much, Katie. Have a great afternoon.
Take care.
Bye. I'm being joined by Glenn Burns, principal of Haverhill High School. Mr. Burns doesn't presently have any video, but he does have audio. So you'll be seeing me mostly during this conversation. Mr. Burns, would you like to say hello?
Hello. It's nice to be here this afternoon and to talk about our seniors and all of how we're going to celebrate all of their great accomplishments.
Exactly. I think a lot of people are thinking about this and wondering what's going to be happening next. It's such a rite of passage for students, all the activities that surround graduation. And we certainly don't want the kids to miss out on this. And unfortunately, we know that they can't look like they have in the past. And Mr. Burns, I know you're still very much in the throes of planning for the coming events, but can you tell us sort of what you're thinking at this point?
So what we're thinking at this point is to work with our partner in Haverhill Public Access Television, and giving the kids a scheduled time to come down and to be in a little mini ceremony, and then eventually all of the edits will be put together, and at one time will be shown as close as we can get to a real graduation at this time. There are many other activities at Haverhill High that makes being a Hilly so special, and we're looking at trying to recreate those in a variety of different ways via our senior chapel, Night of Stars. We're working with student council actually tomorrow on Tuesday to iron out some of the details of some of the events, and we're looking to put out some dates and items that we need from our families done in a timely manner by the end of this week.
Great. So you're including the students in some of the planning. That's nice, because this has really been tough for them. So it's nice they have a voice. What kinds of things do you need from families at this point?
So as soon as we get going, we need families to send in their senior shout outs or their pictures, because we're working with other organizations on different ways of highlighting our families, whether it be through newspapers, magazines. So just getting those items into us, as well as when we send out dates and times for their students to come down and have their video footage taken. Just communication on if that works with the family. Do we need to move it around? Because it will be a fairly tight timeline once we get everything in order, to give Haverhill Access also time to make a pretty seamless production.
So, Mr. Burns, I'm sort of envisioning students being handed a diploma, or sort of as they traditionally would have been, perhaps with yourself and some of the high school staff there, me and a small number of students socially distanced, and then just doing that in waves and having that recorded by the HC Media, and then pasting that all together and putting together a video production of graduation. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, that's pretty close. There's a few other details in there, but that's the general idea and the gist of it. That way we can have a production that kids can remember for years. There'll be video of it, and the whole community can share in that experience as they do every year.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's it's not ideal, but I think it's I guess it's what it is, and it gives our students some form of closure. I like, and we're going to plan to have that air hopefully on the date of graduation. Is that correct?
We're looking forward to that. We're working with our vendors right now to make sure that all of the items are in place that we need. Some of the vendors have been closed down for a little bit. So today we're on the phone with a few of them, and they're giving us some dates for when they're going to ship our students' items. As soon as we get those dates, a solid date, we'll set all of our dates with our community members and our families.
That's great. Thank you. And I know there are a lot more questions about the high school and about activities at the high school. We're going to be doing this sort of video update weekly for our families. Maybe we could have a little high school corner each week and you could join us.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. And as we begin to think about what happens next, the next thing that we really need to be considering is summer programming for Haverhill Public Schools. And we have been thinking about that a lot as a group, and determining how summer school will happen. We know it's going to happen. It needs to happen. But what does it look like? And I think the reality is at this point, we don't know. So we're planning across multiple fronts for summer school, just as we are for school this fall. And joining me is Diane Connolly, who is our Director of Multi-Tiered Systems of Support, and has really taken summer planning by the horns, and is getting us all pulled together and ready to rock and roll for early July for summer school. Diane, can you tell me a little bit about the work you've been doing with your team?
Sure. There is quite a group working. We call it the Summer Academy Committee. We meet every week. There is a large representation on that committee, from food service to transportation to the coordinators, the YMCA, the Discovery Program, every stakeholder who has any kind of summer programming. We meet every Monday. And we have we have an application with a survey to parents that will be going out later today. Next step is we are hiring staff and planning on a hybrid model of some remote learning as well as on-site learning.
So that's a little bit different than in years past, Diane, right? So the application will go out this year to identified families, is that right?
Yes, Dr. Murata. The letter is going out to a list of targeted students. The students are, have high needs, and it is based on some standardized test scores as well as teacher and principal recommendation. So yes, there are specific families that are being targeted. And yes, we are excited that this year the registration is online.
That is exciting, and I want to say for the other families, we're also doing some additional planning around some summer enrichment and maybe remediation work for all students, and we'll share more about that moving forward. That's more likely to be more remote learning. I think at this point we are hopeful that we might have some sort of an in-person summer program. That's correct, right, Diane? With some
yes, and we are again looking at creating that, given the social distancing guidelines that the governor has put forth. So we are looking at how many students we can fit on the 40-foot buses, how many students we can fit on the special ed buses, what the capacity for classrooms are. So all of those parts are being considered in our planning, because we are hopeful that, yes, we will have some on-site learning.
Right, so it's last year, and I think in the past, we had tried to sort of have the students gather together in larger programs for the summer. There's certainly an efficiency and a cost savings there, but it sounds like this summer we're kind of going to be much more spread out across a variety of schools, correct?
That is correct. In the past, we, just exactly what you said for resources, we've used the Hunking School and the Nettle and the high school as locations. This year, we're going to, again, have one school in each of the 4 quadrants in the city and the high school. That way, the hope is to keep students close to their neighborhood school. And we are also hopeful that it may cut down on some transportation, because it will allow for families to be able to, hopefully in some cases, walk to summer school. So that's a positive.
And also the Moody School, I believe, correct? We're going to have the little ones go back to the Moody if we can?
Yes, yes, I apologize. The Moody will be, has quite a population of learners that they are targeting as well.
Yeah, so that's exciting. And it sounds like we just have to play it by ear, right, Diane? We sort of plan for everything and hope for the best.
Absolutely. It's that saying that we're building the plane and flying it at the same time. And I think, we don't have any one plan. We have plan A, plan B, plan C, and they're fluid and they're ever changing. And we're trying to change our planning when we get more information. But I have to say, it's an exciting time. And I look forward to continuing to offer learning opportunities for our families.
Great. So folks should be looking in their inboxes, and in some cases, their phone, to have information sent to them regarding summer programming, and that's summer programming for struggling learners, for students with IEPs that may have it in their IEP, for our L student, our English language learners. There's a program for those students, and that will be one application that will be coming out in the next couple of days. And then we'll be asking, I think, parents some questions about, would you prefer in-person or remote learning? Do you have the devices to support that, and that sort of thing? So it's really important for our planning for families to fill that out.
Yes, that's correct. Embedded in the application are some survey questions, and we'll be using that survey information to create groups and target kids for remote versus on-site. If there are families who are really struggling with the remote learning, we are talking about maybe those are the students that we try and bring onto the site. So yes, that information is going to be very important in our planning.
Great. Thank you, Diane. Thank you and the team for all your work. It's quite a
great collaborative effort. And I do want to just say that, again, for the YMCA has a summer reader program, and that is open to all families. And it's a full day from 7 in the morning to 6 at night. And that is not a targeted group of students. So if there are families out there looking for a full day academic recreation-based program, there are options. That's one, and there's others as well. So we continue, again, to look for as many learning opportunities for families that we can. So thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Diane. So families, stay tuned for that. And we are excited. For us, summer program gives us an opportunity on a smaller scale to think about what's coming for the fall, and what do we need to do differently that maybe we wouldn't have thought of till we were sort of in the throes of things. So we're pleased to have that opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's all we have for today. Thank you very much for joining us for our first edition of the Haverhill Public Schools Learning Video Update. We'll be back again next week, hear again from the high school principal, Mr. Burns, on updates around high school senior activities and finals. We'll be hearing from our special education department to hear about the learning related to students with disabilities, as well as other departments and people that might be of interest. If you have something that you think it would be important for us to cover, please email me at superintendent@haverhill-ps.org, and we'd be happy to hear from you and to address your concerns as a community. I appreciate your time and you're watching this. Obviously, this was a lot of information and certainly much more than we would be able to get into a letter or a written communication. So thank you very much. And I look forward to speaking with you all again next week. Take care, be safe, and have a good week.